All right, guys, so today we're going to be talking about actually a little bit of the lower body. So the reason the lower body is important, and specifically the hip flexors and basically the anterior chain of the legs, is that if the hip flexors are tight, kind of this all works in conjunction together. So if the hip flexors are tight, which puts you into that anterior pelvic tilt where a lot of people are, especially runners, that then causes excessive lumbar curve, which then causes excessive thoracic flexion, which makes us not be able to get into as good of an overhead position. So if we can lengthen this up and get into a better position here, then we typically can get in a better position overhead. So a lot of the flexibility and mobility stuff we've been doing is in the overhead position. Obviously, we still want to address that a lot, but we want to talk about loosening this up so we can get in a better streamlined position. And also our shins can get tight. This can carry over to running as well with shin splints and whatnot, but also typically runners, especially starting later in life, if you're like me, you have poor ankle mobility in plantar flexion like this. We maybe have decent range of motion here and ankle flexion here, but we want to be able to extend that foot to help our kick a little bit better and just not be stopping us when we're swimming. So first thing is a stretch. And so first is just sitting in this position here. This is called a Seiza sit. All we're doing is you should feel a light stretch in the front side of the shin, the top of the foot, and the ankle. If you feel a stretch there, you can just start there. If this is too much for you, which putting it just on the hard floor maybe is a little bit uncomfortable, you can get on a yoga mat or something, but we want to be here. If this is relatively comfortable for you, then you can elevate it. This is just a yoga block. You may need something a little bit lower than this, but same thing here. You can sit back, and so you're getting a little bit more extension there. You can use your body weight as the guide as to how much you can put. Obviously, the more you lean back, the more pressure it's going to be, so you may have to stay forward like this so it's not too much pressure, but you want to stay in this in a sustained position, so maybe 2 minutes or so stretching this position. That's the first thing. We're just starting from the bottom and working our way up. Next is going to be the crossball on the anterior tibialis, which is just the shin. So that muscle in the front, this muscle is typically undertrained, so it's weak, and it's also tight. That's where we can get shin splints. It's also where we can just be limited in range of motion for that plantar flexion. So I like to start just below the knee. So kind of where that muscle is right there, and obviously you'll stay to the right of the shin bone, but you'll just work your way down in this position. And so we want that foot flexed, and again, you can kind of use your body weight as a guide if it's super tender. And I like to think about just peeling that muscle away from that shin bone, work your way up a little bit higher, peel that muscle away, and get 3 or 4 kind of movements across that muscle, and then work your way down a little bit lower and just find that kind of tender spot. If you have a tender spot, you can kind of stay there again and breathe into that muscle, breathe into that ball so that muscle relaxes a little bit more. Again, spend about 2 minutes per side on that. Then we can work our way up a little bit higher. So now we're going to go to what's called the super patella pouch, basically that teardrop muscle, the vastus medialis, that teardrop muscle in the front of your quad. This can give us a lot of tension in our knees when we're running. You can get tight, and so we want to start with that ball right there. And again, I'm just kind of rolling side to side. Or one of the things I like to do in this position here with the ball is I get on that VMO, and then I'll just flex my knee right there. So again, like we talked about in one of the previous videos, tacking that muscle down and then stretching it, so pulling it away from the top of the knee, and this should make the knee feel a good bit looser in that squat or flex position. And then you can work to the outside. So this is more the lateral side. Again, just flexing that knee, flex and extend there. And then lastly, using the roller. And again here, a lot of times people roll back and forth like this. I actually like to go more across the tissue and just working my way through up and down, but mainly going across side to side, staying there for 2 or 3 rotations, and then moving to a different spot on the muscle. Another thing here that gets missed, a lot of times people will go completely on the side where the IT band is, but a lot of times when the IT band is tight, it's actually because the quad is pulling on that IT band. So the IT band, when dissected, should be able to withstand a lot, and for it to, basically it should not be stretched or contracted. So when people say it's tight or they have pain or discomfort there, it's typically not because the IT band itself is actually tight. It's because the quad is pulling on the IT band. And so working with this foam roller on the kind of lateral side of the quad where it's pulling to kind of loosen that tissue up around the IT band is what I found to be more beneficial there, as well as strengthening the glute, but that's a different topic for a different day. So while we're working on this anterior side, we want to lengthen and stretch or mobilize the quad right above the knee, still the quad, anterior tib, and all the muscles on the front top of your foot. So again, spend about 5 minutes on each side. When you stand up, you should feel yourself standing a little bit taller, a little bit more straight, a little bit easier to open up your hips. It's also going to be a little bit easier to extend the glute or flex the glute because this anterior side is looser. So one of the reasons you may have trouble if you've heard weak glutes or inhibited glutes, that could be because of the anterior side is so tight. If this side is so tight, then our body is not going to let us contract the glute because this side is so locked down. So loosening up this front side should make it a little bit easier to do that. So that's basically the anterior side of the leg mobility. Done.